Jamie, let's hop right into it. I think one of the biggest questions people have with Wall Street Bets and for you in general is kind of how did you come up with this idea? You know, how did the community start? Were you into finance and stocks your whole life? Kind of give me from the beginning to where we are now. How do we get here?
So I started Wall Street Bets back in 2012. At the time I was single, working a pretty good job with good disposable income, and had my typical Roth IRA, 401k, whatever it might have been. But I had that extra money that I wanted to put it to work, right? Like I want to be able to take a few $1,000s and turn it into millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And obviously risk and return go hand in hand. So the only way to do that was to try and put some of that to risk. So I go online, I'm looking for places that I can talk about individual stocks, not as these long-term diversified, dividend-paying investments, but as these short-term plays. So without finding one, I just decided to create it, right? At the same time, I'd been researching, I was aware of what the stocks were. I was aware of the stock market. I dabbled in it a little bit before that. But this was coming right out of the 2008 financial crisis, and I'm a little disillusioned by how the system really hasn't learned anything from it, right? So I had this kind of mentality of, if you can't beat them, join them. I lost my job with the 2008 financial crisis. I'm like, these guys all got rich, whatever. Why can't I do that too? None of them went to jail, right? So it was this bittersweet kind of relationship with them that I created.
And so how would you kind of describe the community and the culture of the people on Wall Street Bets? I know you have people that are very well versed in finance, and people that are just logging on after their day job. How, to you, what is the culture and community kind of like?
So it was actually really cool because after I created it, you have a lot of people that were like-minded, right? Same thing, I'm youngish, I can take these chances, I want to learn, I don't know very much. And then you have at the same time a lot of people that were industry insiders or professionals, right? They're day traders. Day trading is not fun for people that do that as a craft, as a profession. They sit there and they stare at their screen until their formation, or their stops or limits or whatever. And they stumbled into this thing. They said, look, these kids are all having a good time. They're being crazy with the way they're risking things. I want to hang out here too during the daytime, right? So this mix of I want to learn and I know everything that, or at least I have enough information to teach, kind of come together with this really playful language. Let's lift the veil on sophistication, right? Why talk about, the stocks are going to go up because the valuations of the discounted cash flows of the futures and the earnings and whatever, and then just replace it with a meme that says stocks always go up, right? Because they do. They always have gone up, They go down when the stock market crashes, whenever that might be, 2008, 2000, 1987, 1930, whatever. But it goes back up. So why not put a picture instead of like an Excel sheet to prove it, right? And so this playful concept and language around it oftentimes has a lot of sophistication, and it really does. Like a lot of the things that people have come up with are really powerful and sophisticated, but they dress it under, hey, this is funny, number go up.
And I think a big way that we kind of all saw that earlier this year was with the GameStop stock and kind of the power that Wall Street Bets had over that. Could you speak a little bit to, why were the conditions right for GameStop to kind of, squeeze and go off the way that it did? And what, in your opinion, are the proper conditions for something like that to happen, especially as far as,
So GameStop was yet another iteration of stuff that we had seen on Wall Street Bets several times before, which was an inefficiency in the market, which this group of people want to exploit, all right, for profit. Prior to that, they'd done some things that really did make the news, but it was like CNBC or Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal. It wasn't on TMZ like GameStop. The beauty of these participants is let's see where I can actually make money because of an opportunity that nobody else is seeing. This is called arbitrage in finance, right? Like it's how high-frequency computers make their money. That's how whatever. That's that inefficiency that gets closed. So GameStop was so much more than just a short squeeze. It's so easy to say a lot of people bought it on one side, and on the other side you have a lot of short sellers. So you buy them and then you make them lose money, right? Like that is at the onset, that's the sexy story, and that is true, but it's incomplete. So what was unique about GameStop, which is what made it possible to create that effect was a few things. The high short float, right? Meaning a lot of people were shorting it. In fact, there were more people shorting it than shares exist. All right, so it was over 100% people were shorting it. Number two, it had the high potential of being a meme stock, right? Like, so meme stocks are typically stocks that people on Wall Street Bets can relate to. I like video games. This is my demographic. I used to go to this store, whatever. Number three, it had like an options profile, which is probably the most important component to it. And this is a little technical, so I'll speed through it. But you have stock options on top of stocks, and you have things called puts, and you have things called calls. They each bet in different directions. You had a lot of out-of-the-money calls and puts that were on this particular stock. So what ends up happening there is the people start buying GameStop, right, starts losing money to the short sellers. The ones that sold or wrote these stock options, both calls and puts, both have to start buying these shares as the stock price goes up, because the ones that sell puts, they're doing something called delta hedging, which means that they short the stock too in order to not care what happens to the stock. And the people that wrote the calls also have to start buying the stocks for the same reason. It's the inverse proportion. So now you have the short sellers that are having to buy the stock because they're losing money. You have the people that wrote the call options are having to buy the stocks because they're needing to increase their hedge. You have the people that wrote the puts that are also having to buy the stocks because they're having to reduce their hedge, right? And then you have Wall Street Bets that is just buying and buying. So it's this perfect storm that with little money you trigger it and then it explodes. Every single participant that was looking at GameStop, regardless of what they thought, was forced to purchase this stock. And that's what made it go from like $30 or $40 to $500.
Which is wild. And so, kind of as we speak to that and just social media in general and, the power of a meme stock and people hyping things up on the internet, whether it's within Wall Street Bets or outside of it, which is kind of, I guess, the central topic of this discussion. But do you see that as market manipulation, or is it just democratization of the market? Because it's clearly making an effect on.
I mean, but like market manipulation, that's the market speaking, right? Like, so you have the stock market. One of the most productive purposes of it is called price discovery, right? That's when buyers and sellers come together. You get a price, and that tells things. It's a signal to the world as far as stuff, and that is information that is productive. The more people that get involved, the more volatility that you get, right? The more this price is moving. So if moving prices is manipulation, sure, right? But where's the difference between manipulation and speculation? People will buy into Nikola, right? This like Tesla wannabe electric vehicle. They don't make cars. They're just a SPAC. They're just like a piece of paper without anything other than empty promises. But people will buy that too because they say, I'm going to want this cool looking car. That's speculation, right? And then this thing goes up, and now the price, is that manipulated, or is that me saying I vote for this particular company because with my money, right? Because I believe that it's going to happen. Manipulation and discovering prices, it's all just on a spectrum. Depends on where you want to put it. When you buy the S&P 500 because you want to diversify, and that thing is a lot harder to move, then you're also manipulating it because you're putting your vote towards that. So it's just, I think it just feels different when you have people using memes as opposed to discounted cash flow analysis. And they're like, well, that one over there, that's manipulating. This one over here is hard work research into this fundamental whatever, right? But I don't really see the difference.
And, kind of when you started Wall Street Bets and when this kind of came into fruition, did you see it becoming as big and as impactful as it is now? Or was this kind of something you just wanted to do for fun and
I definitely didn't expect this to happen. What I was hoping would happen, and it did, was let's get enough people together so that they can share ideas, right? Crowdsource these concepts so that they can find ways to do two main things. Number one, make money, because that's what I wanted to do. And two, find these inefficiencies, find these arbitrage opportunities, which will actually improve the market, right? That will actually make it more productive. Going back to this kind of anger that I had towards the stock market, it's like it's gotten so far away from what it's supposed to. Why do these leveraged synthetic 3x ETFs on volatility products exist on Robinhood with a click? That shouldn't happen. So let's try and fix it. After GameStop, we had things that happened with AMC, the movie theater. It started going up, and the CEO goes out there and says, I'm going to do additional offering, I'm going to raise money, blah, blah, blah. The shares aren't really worth this much, but you should buy them anyways. And I had a Reuters reporter call me and said, hey, don't you think this is outrageous that this CEO is going out there and saying, buy these shares, they're not really worth that much, but we want to do new things with the money? And I said, the only thing that's outrageous is this question, because here you have a company trying to raise capital in a capital market to reinvest into R&D or whatever, make jobs, right, and improve the economy. Like, did you forget that's why the stock market exists? Because that's the fundamental reason for it. It got so far away from the original intention. Companies go public not to raise money, but to pay back their investors. You know, you have these SPACs, you have all sorts of things that you don't recognize, or people stopped recognizing why the stock market is there in the first place. Let's make some money. So AMC did exactly what they were supposed to, and that was the objective that I was hoping to do. That alongside with inefficiencies within the market being closed, which I'm also a huge fan of.
And kind of, you know, looking ahead, I think it would be remiss to kind of not bring up the concept of cryptocurrency and NFTs. You know, have you seen kind of, not necessarily a need, but a desire within the community to kind of start shifting and talking about things like that? And do you have a personal opinion on the staying power of both of those?
So I made a mistake that I regret a lot, which was I followed Bitcoin when it started. In fact, I had a lot of really parallels to what Wall Street Bets was doing. I mined them. I'm sure I have somewhere a hard drive with millions of dollars worth, but then I just kind of moved on with my life. It was too cumbersome. It didn't really have a place with Wall Street Bets because the market had matured there. And I just made the assumption from early on after, that the Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency was a thing, right, with buyers and sellers, and they come together and the price changes based off of that. And that's all it was. It was just an asset class. And boy, was I wrong, because crypto is so much more than just coins, right? Like, there's this term that's the most closely defined, is that DeFi, decentralized finance, right? They've taken all the mechanisms from regular finance or TradeFi, traditional finance, and apply them to decentralized finance using blockchain technology and smart contracts to be able to replicate and improve upon the system. Once again, not talking about individual currencies or collective currencies. I'm talking about these blockchain technologies being applied in a way that I have just been baffled, right? Like, an example that I really like using is when I started reading about these synthetic leveraged ETFs or whatever. These are complicated instruments that you buy them and the price goes up 3 times as fast as whatever the underlying is. But they have this nasty side effect where they go to zero over the long term, and it's just really a math issue, right? And so I bumped into them when I was on Binance, this crypto exchange. And I saw like a leveraged ETF button for Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I don't know what it does, so the most logical thing to do is to buy it, right? And it stops me. It goes, no, you don't know what you're doing. These things are leveraged ETFs. I'm like hell, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, buy. So it made me take this, like, watch this video and take a quiz and whatever, and I'm rolling my eyes, and sure enough, I learned something on this video, right? These guys figured out how to take that nasty side effect that makes them go to zero. It's called volatility decay. And they fixed it by putting something called variable leverage ETF. It's once again, they fixed the math because you can have smart contracts that change things based off of rules. If this, then that. So if market is going sideways, making these things lose value, then reduce the leverage. If market just goes up, increase the leverage so that you can really bump it up. So now these things don't go to zero anymore thanks to smart contracts. Like, wow, why doesn't Wall Street have this, right? Or a second one, which is a simple one, 24/7. Why do these things trade 24/7, the other ones don't? And it's not because I want to be up at 3 in the morning trading, right? That's fine too if you want to do that. It's because you have systemic risks at play when you close the market. Just a few weeks ago, we had Evergrande from China, right? The big real estate conglomerate that was going to default. This came out on a Sunday, right? So what happens on Monday when the stocks open? The stocks all gap down well below your stop. So you have responsible hedge funds that aren't gambling. They wake up and go, oh, shoot, I was supposed to close this position out at 2%, but this thing opened up on me 7% underneath. Now my risk profile's out of whack. Now I got to go buy this and rebalance that. And then this domino effect that exists. Like, why can't they just fix it to make it 24? It's like a setting, right? They could just have the NASDAQ guy go in there and say, like, open equals 24 hours and call it a day. I mean, I'm simplifying, obviously, but that by itself is going to make the system stronger. So I can go on and on and on and on. The whole concept of DeFi to me is just fascinating. I think that those two worlds are going to merge. It's very clear. You're already having, well, you had for a while Bitcoin futures trading on the CBOE. You know, you're having symbolic IPOs from the crypto side. You're seeing synthetic stocks or tokenized stocks on the blockchain, so it reduces the barriers of entry and the physical, the border restrictions or whatever it might be. So you're already kind of seeing those things together. You know, in fact, I'm involved with creating these, well, several things, but ETPs are like ETFs or baskets of asset classes, right? So you can buy an ETP that has 20% Bitcoin, 10% Apple, 5% gold, 10% US dollar, euro, whatever, all asset classes bundled up into one, and then you keep it on the blockchain and you get all those. I mean, the flexibility and the power is just astounding. So I am extremely bullish on everything DeFi and blockchain related.
So kind of as, you know, we move into the future with the community that you've built with Wall Street Bets, do you kind of see it going in that direction? Like, where do you see this community growing to? Where do you see Wall Street Bets in general expanding towards? Or do you kind of just see everything kind of remaining as is? Because the community is so massive and
so the beauty about Wall Street. So I own the trademark, the intellectual property. I wrote the book. I do all these things, but I made a conscious decision to not get involved. Right? Like I never did when Wall Street Bets was growing. All these things that happened either with GameStop or before with the infinite leverage or with the box spreads or with whatever it might have been. It's always been the community. So who am I to say that I know better what's? In fact, I didn't even like Robinhood. Right? Like. Because of my style of trading, Robinhood was no good because whatever, I won't get into it. But the community said we do like it, so it's like, fine, you guys like it, have at it, right? That's been my approach since the beginning. And outside of that, you have this community that is now omnipresent. It exists not only on Reddit, but on Telegram and on Discord and on TikTok and on Instagram and on Facebook and et cetera, and whatever the next technology is going to be. And not only is it everywhere there, it's also got different variations of it. You have Silver Street Bets, you have Crypto Street Bets, you have regional ones like K Street Bets or Korea Street Bets, India Street Bets. Like everything is a Street Bets now. It's become this omnipresent mentality, right, of saying like, I want to become empowered. I want to try and take control of these things. And I'm going to try and find advantages through crowdsourcing and crowd thinking, to be able to hopefully make money or to improve the system. So to answer the question, there's no one that steers it. There's never has been someone that steers it, but even more so now that it exists everywhere by individuals all over the internet and all over the world. So whatever it does next, I have no idea, but I have zero doubt that it's going towards crypto. But I also think that crypto as a concept is also going towards Wall Street. I mean, those things will be indistinguishable from each other. So it's not necessarily that the people from here are going to go over there. It's more like these two places are going to get combined, and people from both places are also going to all meet in the middle.
And for anyone who might be, wanting to start investing, who's never really touched a stock or anything of that nature, what would be like your number one piece of advice to somebody who wants to jump in?
Just buy something, right? Like with my ETFs thing, right? When I went to go click on it on Binance, like just buy it. Like what's what'll happen is I'll lose some money. If you buy a stock, like if you buy a share or a cryptocurrency or whatever, and you put $100 into it, you're then going to have it in your account. You're going to go in there every day. You're going to read it like, oh, it's up 2%. That's cool. I made the right decision. Right? The next day it's going to go down 2%. Be like, what the heck? What? Go look it up. Did Apple do something bad? Did they have bad news? Oh, no, it didn't. Then why is my stock down? Right? People only get mad when their stock goes down. When it goes up, it's because they were right. But when they're down, it's because something must have happened. And then they're like, well, the whole stock market's down. Why is that? Oh, there was a bond sell and the yields went up. What does it have to do with the yields? Oh, the interest rate. And the next thing you know, they're reading about monetary policy. And how does that have to do with my Apple stock, right? It makes iPhones. And then they're going to find and learn in their own way what it is that they want to do. So just get your hands involved with it. Have some fun with it. Worst that'll happen is you'll lose a little bit of money. Like obviously risk whatever you're willing to lose, but you will enjoy the process of learning along the way.
Thank you so much, Gina.
Thank you very much.